On Tech News Today, Spain drives Google News out of the country. Plus, after the worst hack attack in the history of business, Sony Pictures hacks back. And wait till you hear who just bought 23,000 iPhones. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and if you'd like to help us design our new website, I invite you to visit twit.to/navtest. We've got 8 quick questions we'd like to ask you that will help us make the navigation easier to use. That's twit.to/navtest. Thanks a lot.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, December 11th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and good morning to you, Jason Cleanthes. How you doing, man?
Good morning, Mike. How's things going?
Things are good. It's awfully moist around here. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's raining buckets. The Pineapple Express storm, yeah, it's called the Pineapple Express because it comes from Hawaii, is raining down upon the state of California. So it will provide a little bit of relief from the massive drought. But anyway, let's get it into the news with Elise Hugh, our co-anchor. How you doing, Elise?
Doing great. I don't understand why rainstorms have to have names too, but fine.
Yeah, they do have to have names. I don't understand it either. I understand that, but you know what bothers me? This is kind of a few days ago, we had another launch, a NASA launch. Every time they launch a rocket, the guy who does the countdown or whatever says some marketing slogan, right, as it's taking off, ruining the effect. Bringing America into the 21st century, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's like, why? Why do that? Why spoil it? Come on, it was a good moment.
Just launch it, right.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tim Cook has been named the Person of the Year by the Financial Times. And this was interesting in part, Elise Hugh, because Time Magazine was considering Tim Cook, but instead it named the people who are working to save people from Ebola as the Person of the Year. And so the Financial Times named Tim Cook the Person of the Year. And I think it's good because one of the reasons is that he has increased Apple's valuation through raising the stock price by 50% since sometime last year. So he's a super successful CEO. Plus, he came out of the closet and announced publicly that he was gay. And so combination of that and some other events, and mostly they give him a lot of praise for doing something very difficult, which is taking Steve Jobs' Apple and keeping what was good about it and improving what wasn't so good about it. Some of the philanthropic things that they're starting to do and some of the policies, making a big deal with IBM, which is probably something Steve Jobs might not have ever done. So I thought it was interesting and probably a good choice for them to pick Tim Cook as the Person of the Year. What do you think?
Well, it's still, I mean, his coming out was really beautiful if you read that column, that original column. And it's still kind of a really sort of closeted place among Fortune 500 CEOs, really. And so he becomes, what, one of the only, I guess he becomes the 3rd CEO, I believe was the stat when he first came out, of a major publicly traded company in America to come out as gay. And so it was a big deal socially, and obviously his business success can't be overlooked. Yep,
absolutely. He's certainly in charge of the world's most valuable company. I think they still have that designation. It's either them or ExxonMobil, one way or the other. Anyway, Financial Times named Tim Cook the Person of the Year. Let's jump right into the news, Elise. Google said in a blog post last night that it plans to close Google News in Spain after lawmakers there passed rules that require Spanish newspapers to charge Google when Google shows summaries and thumbnail pictures from the news stories they link to. The law, which is being called the Google tax, goes into effect in January. Jeremy Malcolm is a senior global policy analyst for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and he joins us now. Hey, Jeremy.
Hi, thanks for the invitation.
Wait, now, publishers are required to charge Google, is that right?
Well, this is the interesting thing, because they tried a similar experiment to this in Germany, where they passed a law saying that publishers were entitled to be charged when Google used news snippets in the search results. But Google was able to negotiate with the publishers and get a free deal to use the news snippets. And so the publishers didn't end up with any money. So in Spain, they decided to go one better and make it a requirement that Google or a similar news aggregator should pay for the links. And the money doesn't go directly to the publishers. It goes to a collecting society on behalf of the publishers. So whether any given publisher sees the money that Google's paying at the end of the day is open to question. Of course, Google is not going to be paying any money at the end of the day after this because the law had, I suppose, the opposite effect to what they intended by just shutting down the service altogether.
And Jeremy, how are lawmakers even imagining how they could possibly stop snippets of information showing up on other aggregators or other search engine sites? I mean, is everybody just going to be expected to pay?
Yeah, it does apply to news aggregators that are defined in a quite clever way that's designed to mainly target Google, because there has to be a search function by the news aggregator, for example. So it's not going to cover too many other major websites, although Yahoo News does have a Spanish presence, and they do actually have advertising on their service, unlike Google News. So it may be that Yahoo will stay in Spain and will have to pay up.
It seems to me that Spain is a particularly unfortunate country for this experiment to be taking place, for the simple reason that there are probably more Spanish-speaking countries out there with national versions. For example, any Spanish news fan can just sort of call up the Mexican version or the Argentinian version, or, you know, they take your pick. There are many, many Spanish language versions of Google News that will be available to Spanish news viewers. And so this is, you know, it seems pretty obvious to me that this is just going to ruin, decimate, sort of accelerate the demise of the Spanish news publishing industry. And why do they think that this is even a remotely good idea? They lobbied for this, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they didn't look very far ahead when they planned this. But just to respond to your point about how you can easily go to Mexican Google News, it may not work that way because reports are that Google is also going to be pulling the Spanish newspapers' search results from across its Google News product. Even in the countries where Google News is still available, they won't carry the results from the Spanish news sources. So although, yes, you could still go to another Spanish language news product, it still won't have that much news in it except for the news that comes directly from Mexico or Argentina or wherever it is. One interesting thing that Google could do, though, is much the same thing as they did when they moved their search engine out of China into Hong Kong, and they redirected the searches from within China for the Chinese version of Google to the Hong Kong version. So they could very easily, if they wanted to, redirect the Google Spain news accesses to Google Mexico or some other Spanish language country.
And Jeremy, just for the American audience, since we know that obviously our sensibility toward Google is very different than the European sense, could you sort of just rehash how this particular regulatory move by Spain underscores a stronger sort of anti-Google feeling in Europe right now, and why?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, there is the feeling that Google is profiting from local, not just news organizations, but also personal information that it harvests. And so this has also been behind some other moves in Europe, such as the right to be forgotten decision, which allows people to have information about themselves taken out of Google search results. And, of course, there have been antitrust moves in Europe against Google, and also moves to make sure that Google pays its fair share of tax. The UK recently announcing a different sort of Google tax, not a tax on search results, but an actual company tax to target Google, which is well known for shifting its tax base around to the most favourable foreign jurisdictions, notably Ireland. So, Yeah, Google is not seen in very high favor in parts of Europe. And so this is really just a part of a broader attack, I guess, on Google's operations here.
Now, you mentioned the German case in which the option was provided by law for publishers to try to charge Google or have their information removed, actually, and a major German publisher tested it. They had a massive reduction in traffic to their websites, and that was an experiment you called a manifest failure. But weren't they trying to demonstrate Google's overwhelming monopoly power? Didn't they consider that a success?
Well, I'm not sure if that was their intention. I think that really this is not a complaint about Google indexing content, whether it's in Germany or Spain or anywhere. We've found that the news organizations really do want and depend on Google indexing their content. So if they wanted to simply block Google from displaying search results in its Google News product, then it could very easily do that. There's a standard called robots.txt, which allows any website on the internet to block itself from Google so that it becomes invisible to Google. So if that's what the news organizations wanted, they could very easily do it. We can see that in reality, it's just a push to share revenue with Google. Unfortunately, in the case of Google News, that's not a very wise tactic because there is no revenue coming from Google News since they've decided not to monetize that product with ads.
All right. Well, Jeremy Malcolm is at EFF.org. That's where you can read his writings that are posted on EFF. And you can follow him on Twitter at QIRTAIBA. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, in just a sec, we're going to give you some Sony news, the latest in the big Sony excitement, the hack. And first I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. You want to hire the best possible people. And where are those people? Well, the bad news is that those people are everywhere. If you want to hire the very, very best person, you can never guess where they're going to be posting their job or you know, sort of shopping themselves around. They might be on a social network. They might be on a job board. They're probably going to be in ZipRecruiter's own database. But ZipRecruiter will not only let you search their huge database of resumes, but they'll also cast this enormous net, 50-plus job boards with one click, and that includes all the major social networks, including LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, and you name it. And that's really the way to hire somebody because, again, there is no one place where the best qualified candidates congregate. They are everywhere. ZipRecruiter will help you not only bring them in, but they'll also help you sort through those resumes and choose only the most qualified candidates, and they'll save you a ton of time. That way you can focus on the best candidates and hire them very, very quickly. Find out why ZipRecruiter's been used by more than 250,000 businesses. Right now, TNT fans can try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Well, Elise, Sony got struck, and now Sony is striking back. What's going on?
Yeah, the saga continues with maybe a kind of subversive twist after one of the most embarrassing hacks in corporate history, as we've all been reading about over the last week and a half. Sony Pictures appears to be striking back with DDoS, denial of service attacks of their own. Two unnamed sources have told Recode that Sony is using hundreds of computers in Asia to do DDoS attacks on websites where you can download their leaked internal documents and the unreleased films, the stuff that we've already been seeing, like salary data and some really personal information of stars that, like Stallone, whose Social Security number got out. So private information that really shouldn't be out there. Sony is now trying to stop people from having access to that.
I was kind of surprised when I was reading the Recode report this morning because apparently this is an old school technique. The media companies used to use this all the time to combat piracy. They would simply do an attack on the servers where those whatever files were being distributed. In this case, they're not doing it for the movie sites, but the places where they have the Sylvester Stallone emails and so on. And so it's really kind of shocking that they would resort to something like this.
And it's actually a little hard to believe. I'm a little skeptical of the story because there's so many sources within the studio who have been saying like they've been using paper and fax machines and have only recently gotten their email accounts back up. They've been using like Gmail and Hotmail accounts. And so for the kind of technical sophistication to be going on as a quick response like this, while they're still trying to get their phone lines up, seems to be divergent from what's happening. It seems to be kind of like two different directions, but I suppose it's possible.
Now, before the show started today, you and I were talking about the kind of how we feel cheap and dirty if we read this stuff. You know, it's just like this has been leaked, and, you know, there is a case to be made for finding newsworthy information and reporting on that news, but just going through it and reading some of the weird stuff in there is kind of a, you know, it seems on the one hand you might be fishing for news, but on the other hand, this is not meant to be put into the public eye. So I'd like to ask you out there, not you, Elise, but you, the viewers, what do you think? Is it ethical to look through this material? Send us an email to tnt@twit.tv. We'd love to hear your view on that. Now, one of the other nuggets of information from this that I thought was really interesting, Elise, was that the Guardians of Peace, the GOP hacker group, claims to have stolen just under 100 terabytes. That's a lot of data, and of course, if that includes feature films, that's going to take up a lot of space. But that is a lot of data. How long did it take them to download that? I mean, that's really, really impressive.
Right, and again, the North Korean government is now officially denying its involvement after other spokespeople for the North Koreans actually sort of hinted that they might be involved. They said some weird things to the BBC, like, "We will see." And so it's unclear who exactly the Guardians of Peace are, but we do know the Guardians of Peace, or the symbols of the Guardians of Peace actions, match those of a hack into South Korean banks not too long ago. And so the North Korean fingerprints are still on this, but the FBI and Sony investigation continues.
All right. Well, in other Sony news, the company said yesterday that its PlayStation 4 game console will go on sale in China starting January 11th. The rival Xbox went on sale there Monday. The biggest challenge for both consoles is heavy Chinese censorship. All game titles need to be explicitly approved by the government in advance, and the approval process can take a long time. So far, the company has submitted 30 game titles, and a few have been approved, according to Sony. Game consoles were banned in China until January. Alexander Sliwinski is the news content director for Joystick and joins us now. Welcome to you, Alexander.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what kinds of games will be available in China for the PlayStation at the launch?
For the PlayStation, it'll probably have to go through a process, and we really don't know at this time what specific games will be available, but something like Grand Theft Auto 5 will probably have a more difficult time than most, since that game was recently taken out of stores in Australia for content that was deemed inappropriate. So it'll be on a case-by-case basis, and it'll come down to the companies that are repping these games that are coming through and how well their relationship is.
How well is the Xbox selling in China? And I only ask this because I wonder whether the Chinese culture is one that, like other Asian cultures, that in which young people who are gamers tend to do it in physical spaces like arcades, or in South Korea, I guess they're called bongs. And so, are individual game consoles that you have at home selling okay in China?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing okay. Sony could ship as many as 200,000 PS4 systems in the next month or so, and as far as we know, reports have been that Xbox One has sold more than 100,000 units in its first week in the region. So that's the Chinese console market is about $10 million, compared to the $13.75 billion, which is what the gaming industry is there. This is compared to the States, where it's $15.3 billion. So it's an emerging market in terms of consoles there, but I mean, the PC market is strongly established.
I've always been curious about something. The PlayStation 4 costs about $400 in the US, and in China, it's going to be priced at $468. This is kind of universal for many of these kinds of products. The Xbox was much more expensive in China, too. Why is that? Why are the prices so much higher in China?
It's not just China. I mean, it goes to Australia, it goes to Europe as well. It comes down to the different types of taxes, the import laws. This is not a a sort of pricing that's dictated by the corporations. This is pricing that is dictated by the taxes that are levied against these systems and electronics as they cross various borders from where they're manufactured.
Okay, and one more quick question that I've always wondered. Why were game consoles banned in China in the first place? I believe they were banned from 2000 until this year, right? So why were they banned?
They were harmful to children. I mean, it's the classic,
They still are.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic statement. These things are harmful to kids, even though there are various types of games and they're meant for many different markets and many different demographics. So it's not just about the children anymore. It hasn't been about the children in decades, but it works really great with the populace when you say that.
And you were very cautious about suggesting that maybe Grand Theft Auto might kind of sort of not be approved there. There is no way Grand Theft Auto is ever going to be approved in China. There's just absolutely no way. Alexander Sliwinski is at joystick.com. That's joystick with a Q, excuse me. And you can follow him on Twitter at Sliwinski. Thanks for joining us, Alexander.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Elise, it looks like the friendly skies are especially friendly to Apple.
That's right. United Airlines, one of the biggest airlines, domestic airlines, and one of the biggest presences in the world, will begin deploying 23,000 iPhone 6 Pluses to flight attendants. And this is so they can handle onboard transactions as well as accessing company email and other internal information like flight safety updates, flight maintenance updates, things like that.
It sounds kind of cool because the pilots have iPads, they're renewing their iPad contract, and they're getting iPad 2. I believe they're getting iPad Air 2s, which are just like really great iPads, and they use those for, of course, electronic flight books, flight bags. I think they call them electronic flight bags, where they have all their charts and everything in there. And so it's kind of cool. I love what they're doing with it. They are using the iPhones not only for them to use, like regular phones. They do company email and so on. And not only do they have their electronic manuals, but they're also using them to process, food orders and stuff like that. When you order some food on the airline, they'll just be able to use their iPhone 6 Plus to do that. And I think this is kind of inevitable that other airlines will follow suit. What I don't know about this news, and I don't know if you know this either, Elise, will these be phones that will be usable as phones? In other words, will they be sort of in a permanent airplane mode, or will they be able to, will the flight attendants themselves actually be able to break that rule when they take off?
I'm guessing they're going to be in permanent airplane mode, Mike. But I wonder to what extent this is actually just sort of a marketing ploy rather than a real strategic play. Because I mean, you fly a lot and are in airports a lot. There's plenty of evidence of air traffic and air traffic control and airlines being so technologically backwards. We still see dot matrix printers in plenty of airports, and you can see the kind of terminals that a lot of the gate agents are working on. So I find this news a little bit dissonant with my experience of technology in air travel as it exists in 2014, headed into 2015.
And of course, the flight attendants themselves will probably be divided right down the middle, with half of them saying, "Oh boy, the company is going to buy me an iPhone," and the other half saying, "Oh no, I just bought the Nexus 6, and now I have to carry 2 gigantic phones everywhere I go. What a disaster." So we'll see. We'll see. I think you're right, though. I think this is clearly an advertising sort of marketing a gimmick, probably on the part of Apple. Apple probably severely discounted these because it's just a really great way to showcase the phones when United Airlines passengers see the flight attendants using them. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe that they're making technological advances until the last dot matrix printer is gone.
I think what they need to do is build in support for dot matrix printers into iPhones. That'd be cool. Or build them into the iPhone cases or something like that. Anyway.
I mean, how do you even buy paper for those printers anymore?
I know. It's amazing.
Like where you have to rip off the sides? Oh, gosh.
It's incredible.
Anyway.
Well, Amazon may expand same-day delivery globally. The possibility was revealed in job listings posted this week and found by Reuters. The company may also be planning to add same-day delivery for all products sold by third-party merchants listed on Amazon.com. Elise, I don't know how they're going to do this or how they're going to pay for this. It's really, really expensive to do same-day delivery. And for them to actually roll this out globally, and also for third-party sellers is going to be monstrously expensive. But of course, you know, the thing is that it turns out the people who like same-day delivery also spend a lot more money. So this is really a play for the big spenders.
Well, we know one thing's for sure. There's probably going to be more foul-ups like the one we reported last week in which like something from the assembly line winds up packed in a box and then Amazon doesn't want to pay to have their assembly line products sent back to them. So
yeah, you'll get that assembly line, you know, the part from the factory, you'll get it in just one day. So that'll be great. So it turns out that same-day delivery costs $5.99 for Prime members and $8.99 for non-Prime members. And, of course, as we've reported on the show multiple times in different stories, Amazon is really spicing up the benefits for being a Prime member, especially for people who have tiny babies. They are, for example, they have a new line of diapers that are super, super cheap and can only be purchased by Prime members, and non-Prime members can't buy them at any price. Well, we have some updates. Xiaomi phones have been banned in India. A site called Spicy IP reports that Xiaomi has been served with an injunction that bans them from not only selling phones in India, but importing, making, or even advertising them until at least February. I believe the date is February 5th. Some Xiaomi phones were found to infringe on 8 Ericsson patents. The company reportedly failed to respond to 6 requests by Ericsson for some sort of communication since July. India is Xiaomi's biggest market outside China. I don't know what they're doing, Elise, but this sounds like a terrible set of moves or blunder on the part of Xiaomi. They're going to lose a lot of money on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge market that we're talking about. So, yeah, strategically, I don't know.
Yeah.
Puzzling.
Yep. The Supreme Court of Canada today ruled that police don't need a warrant to search a suspect's mobile phone. The majority on the court agreed that smartphones are comparable to personal computers, but the need for security required them to be treated differently. 3 dissenting judges, however, said that smartphones are fundamentally different from items like handbags that police are legally allowed to search and more akin to a house key. What they mean by that is if police find a house key in the pocket of a suspect, they still need a warrant to search the house. The Canadian ruling differs from an American Supreme Court case in which judges unanimously ruled that mobile phone searches without a warrant are unconstitutional. This is a surprising turn of events, Elise. I'm really kind of shocked that that the Canadian Supreme Court did this. It just seems really counter to the general feelings about personal privacy and so on in Canada.
Yeah, and especially to have it just fly in the face of what the American courts decided as well. So I'll have to read a little bit closely at the I guess winning opinion here. Yeah,
and I think that the dissenting judges make a really good case, which is that the phone itself is a key to personal data that is protected, that should be protected, especially since everything is in the cloud. If, for example, they get their hands on a PC, they would need a warrant to search that PC. And yet the data is most likely going to be the same data. It's going to be stored in the cloud. And so to make a differentiation like this between the phone and the PC technically is crazy talk, because it's really the same data, most likely.
Yeah, the implications for Canadians is pretty dangerous.
Yep. And speaking of dangerous, they, you know, this is clearly the sort of security fear-mongering has apparently made it all the way to the Supreme Court in Canada. There's just so much of it these days, and it's causing judges to make bad decisions, I think. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Jim Kaler in Colorado, who took this video of himself hiking in the Colorado foothills and watching TNT with his cats. So several things about this. Elise, he's hiking with his cats?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know how you get to hike with your cats, and like they're unleashed too. So I have 2 cats of my own, and I can't get them to come from one side of the house to the other. So that's pretty amazing and impressive, James in Colorado. But also, that's some real dedication to watching TWiT TV, TNT. Thanks.
Yeah, he gets informed. He also says that it keeps the bears away, and I'm not really sure if I'm flattered by that or. I would have thought bears would have liked this show.
You're
anyway,
bear repellent.
Yeah. Oh, man. How do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we'll find it. You know, put it on Facebook. We don't have very many of these on Facebook. They're mostly on Google+ and Twitter, so I'd love to see more posted on Facebook. And that is the tech news today. Elise, Hugh, what are you working on these days?
Oh,
now
I'm
that
working
the
on
Sony
doing
hack
some
is.
scouting. Yeah, I'm gonna actually heading over to the Korean Peninsula on Saturday. So
Are you really? So you
I'm
scouting
not gonna go to the
for?
north side, and I won't be asking the people on the north side about the hack. So
How's your Korean coming along?
it's
Your Korean
not
language.
coming along very far.
Well, you're an American, so remember, just talk louder.
Okay.
All right, Elise, thanks a
We'll
lot.
see how that works.
Yeah,
Thanks.
all right, we'll
Thanks,
see you
guys.
next week.
All right, bye.
Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on TuneIn Radio, or you can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. Follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, and please send us an email to tnt@twit.tv. Give us a call at 260-TNT Show and leave a message. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.